It was a surreal moment. It's giving me goosebumps right now. Well, I'm intermittent fast when I'm not shooting Triple D.
Do you really?
Oh yeah, I'm hardcore. And then I said, listen, I don't want to go into my life. I don't want to do all that I'm doing and end up being one of these people that can't enjoy it.
For years, Guy Fieri has been the king of comfort food and road trip charm. But behind the frosted tips and fiery diners, something's been quietly simmering.
I really thought we'd do it for about 2 years and then we'd run out. We'd run out of locations.
That's what I thought, yeah.
Okay.
Now, at 57, the mayor of Flavortown himself is finally cracking open the vault. And what he's revealing about diners, drive-ins, and dives has fans and insiders doing double takes.
So how much longer will it go? I think I'll probably be doing the show in a walker, or Hunter and Ryder will take.
From rigged local spots to producers hiding what really happens off camera, this isn't the feel-good food show you thought it was. So let's get into it. For nearly 2 decades, Guy Fieri has been the spiky-haired face of American comfort food, a cross-country crusader turning mom-and-pop diners into overnight sensations. With his trademark shades, big laughs, and over-the-top energy, diners, drive-ins, and dives, or Triple D as fans call it, became more than a show. It became a movement.
You know, I'm a fan of Triple D, or I've seen the show. I mean, that was early on in the show.
But beneath the flames, the fried food, and the fame, a much darker story was simmering. Because behind those high fives and heartwarming success stories lies a trail of lawsuits, bitter betrayals, and backroom battles that nearly tore Triple D apart and almost ended Guy Fieri's TV empire before it reached its peak. And now, at age 57, Fieri is finally addressing what really went down. It was supposed to be just another season of sizzling burgers and feel-good Americana. But in May 2011, the diners, drive-ins, and dives empire suddenly hit the brake.
My God, I can do. That's my style. I said, what's it called? Diners, drivers, dive-ins, and dines. I said, what? They couldn't get the name right.
That month, Page Productions, the Minnesota-based company that created and produced the Food Network's hit show, filed a bombshell lawsuit that sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. The lawsuit accused the Food Network, its longtime partner and distributor, of breaking their contract, blocking Guy Fieri from filming, and effectively stealing control of the show that Page Productions had built from the ground up. And according to those who were there, it wasn't just about money. It was about power, ownership, and betrayal.
No one ever gets diners, drive-ins, and dives right. That's why we call it Triple D all the time. I said, I could do that.
Back in 2007, when diners, drive-ins, and dives first hit the airwaves, it was a modest, low-budget travel show with a charismatic host and a dream. Page Productions, led by industry veteran David Page, handled everything: concept, production, editing, and creative direction. The Food Network simply aired it, but the show exploded into a cultural phenomenon. With Guy Fieri's loud personality and Page's vision for showcasing America's real food, Triple D became one of the most watched shows on the network. Behind the scenes, though, success bred tension. As Guy's fame skyrocketed and the Food Network realized it had a goldmine on its hands, insiders say the dynamic started to shift. The bigger Guy got, the smaller Page became. One crew member later admitted anonymously, suddenly it wasn't their show anymore. It was his show. According to court filings, the two parties had a detailed production agreement in place since 2007, one that was amended multiple times to include new episodes as the show grew. By the time the lawsuit hit in 2011, that deal covered 39 additional episodes for Triple D's 12th, 13th, and 14th seasons.
He said, you're kind of like a food critic. I said, nope, not for me. You go, what? No, not for me. I'm not a food critic. I'm a chef.
But Page Productions claimed the Food Network sabotaged those final 2 seasons. The complaint alleged the network failed to pay production costs, withheld Guy Fieri's availability, and refused to honor the contract's renewal clause, effectively cutting Page out of its own creation. In blunt terms, they accused the Food Network of locking them out of Flavortown. The agreement was clear: the network was responsible for furnishing the services of the host Guy Fieri and paying his separate talent fee. But according to Page Productions, the network flat out refused to make Fieri available for filming the 13th and 14th seasons, essentially freezing the production mid-contract.
And I'm like, is this serious? She goes, yeah. She goes, there'll be a contract on your door tomorrow morning. We FedExed it. So they get it, and I read it, and I'm like, this is horrible.
After 4 years of Page Productions providing the Food Network with one of their biggest hits in years, the network told us to stop production in the midst of a 3-season contract. The company stated through its law firm, Fredrickson and Byron, the sudden shutdown was devastating for the production crew. With no episodes to film and no access to the show's host, Page Productions was forced to lay off employees, ending the careers of the very people who had helped turn a small idea into one of Food Network's biggest franchises. Insiders described the atmosphere as heartbreaking. Some said they saw it coming. Others claimed they were blindsided. It felt like we were being erased, one former crew member recalled. We built that show and suddenly we were told we couldn't touch it anymore. It was like losing a child. The lawsuit demanded unspecified damages and a jury trial, accusing the network of acting in bad faith to strip Page of creative control and hand the series to another production company.
They want my life. So I sent it to an attorney buddy of mine. He looked at it and he goes, yeah, you're signing the life.
But perhaps the most chilling accusation wasn't in the paperwork. It was in the whispers. According to people close to David Page, the timing of everything, the network's sudden withdrawal, the host's unavailability, and the quiet talks about a new production company was too coincidental to ignore. That's when the rumor mill started turning. Some believe that Guy Fieri himself had sided with the network, intentionally stepping back from filming to pressure Page Productions into folding. Page later claimed he had reason to believe Fieri was working behind the scenes with Food Network executives to move the show to a different company, one that would give Guy more creative control and possibly a better financial stake. While Fieri was never officially accused of wrongdoing, the alleged backroom maneuvering painted him as less of the lovable mayor of Flavortown and more of a TV power player willing to let his original team burn if it meant protecting his brand.
Never been to New York. Flew in New York in shorts, flip-flops, and a yellow leather jacket.
Neither Guy nor the Food Network publicly addressed those allegations at the time. A request for comment to the network went unanswered, and Fieri's team remained tight-lipped. But the silence spoke volumes. The case wasn't just another Hollywood contract dispute. It exposed the dark underbelly of food television, where small production companies are often swallowed whole once their shows become profitable.
When Food Network originally called you to come to New York to compete in the, Food Network's Next Star show,
Page Productions, which also made outrageous food for the Food Network, wasn't just suing for money. They were fighting for survival. If they lost diners, drive-ins, and dives, they'd lose their biggest cash flow, their reputation, and their creative legacy, all to a network that, according to them, took their idea and ran with it. While the legal battle played out in court, the show continued airing seemingly unaffected. Fans had no idea anything was wrong. But behind the curtain, the Triple D family had been torn apart. By the end of 2011, the network had quietly moved production to Citizen Pictures, a Denver-based company. Page Productions was gone, erased from the credits.
How did this impact the business?
Oh, it hurt. It hurt bad.
The Food Network got to keep its hit. Guy Fieri got to keep his throne. And David Page? He got a cautionary tale about what happens when your creation becomes too successful for you to control. Just when it seemed like Page Productions had the upper hand, the Food Network struck back with a vengeance. And this time, they didn't just defend themselves, they went for the throat. Their $1.5 million countersuit flipped the entire story on its head, painting David Page, the man who created diners, drive-ins, and dives, not as a victim, but as a volatile power producer who had allegedly turned the set of America's favorite food show into what one insider described as a hostile circus. The network claimed it had no choice but to replace him, not because of creative disagreements, but because Page had become impossible to work with. In legal filings obtained by several media outlets, the Food Network accused Page of creating an intolerable work environment.
Pushed me. They really said, you got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. I said, I'm doing this. I'd never seen a single show on the Food Network.
Behind the cheerful on-screen smiles and Guy Fieri's laid-back swagger, producers described a totally different reality, one filled with rage-fueled outbursts, missed deadlines, and staff burnout. According to the counterclaim, Page allegedly hurled vicious insults at his own employees through email, messages that sound more like the dialogue of a mob movie than the behind-the-scenes chatter of a food show.
Not because Food Network wasn't awesome back then. I just work it every day of my life. I don't want to go home and have somebody telling me how to boil an egg. So when I submitted the tape They call.
One message reportedly read, "You are a vile, uninformed piece of shitty." Another, "I hope you die so I can dance on your effing grave." And in perhaps the most revealing one of all, "Let's assume I'm a genius from now on. This is no longer a democracy." The Food Network said it was forced to step in when the situation became intolerable by September 2010, and it demanded workplace changes to protect the staff. Page, they alleged, refused. The network's legal team went even further, accusing Page of missing production deadlines, failing to deliver finished footage, and violating contractual rules by promoting diners, drive-ins, and dives on his own website without permission, something the contract allegedly forbade.
Oh, gosh. Painstakingly. Wanted to die. Just didn't want to watch anymore. I mean, like, oh, God, that sucked. Don't make me watch that again.
Worse yet, the network claimed that Page was holding onto footage, graphics, and music for Triple D's 12th and 13th seasons. Materials they said the Food Network legally owned under a work-for-hire agreement. In other words, if true, Page was allegedly sitting on pieces of Triple D that the network had already paid for, and refusing to hand them over. It was a move that reportedly infuriated executives and sent legal teams scrambling. One insider described the tension as a tug of war over the hard drives of Flavortown. By this point, what had started as a legal disagreement over contracts had turned into a full-blown feud, with both sides accusing each other of sabotage. Page claimed the network had frozen him out and blocked Guy Fieri's participation. The network countered that Page's own behavior had made the work environment unbearable, forcing them to intervene. And somewhere in the middle stood Guy Fieri, the face of the show, the star everyone loved, and the one person both sides were fighting to claim as their own.
But you learn, if you don't want to say soap teeth, you go learn pretty damn quick how to not say soap teeth anymore.
The irony was hard to ignore. Diners, drive-ins, and dives had built its reputation on celebrating small-town honesty and down-home kindness. But now, its creator and its network were locked in a high-stakes legal battle that was anything but wholesome. The show that had once been about comfort food had become a war over control, credit, and chaos. While lawyers sparred and accusations flew, the people who actually made the show, editors, camera operators, and local producers, were stuck in the middle. Crew members described an increasingly toxic work atmosphere where loyalty lines were blurred. Some supported Page, insisting that his passion was being twisted into a narrative of abuse. Others quietly agreed with the network, saying his temper and control issues had gotten worse as the show's success grew.
Had the show, Guys Big Bite, and it was doing pretty good. And they said, hey, we have a pilot for a show we want you to do. And I said, okay. What's the pilot? He said, well, come over and meet this group, and they're going to take you to be in New York, and you're going to go do this thing, and you're going to talk about kitchen.
It got to a point where everyone was walking on eggshells, one former crew member allegedly told an Insider magazine. You never knew which version of Page you were going to get that day, the creative genius or the guy who'd blow up over a typo. As word of the countersuit spread, rumors began swirling online that Triple D might be on the chopping block altogether. Fans panicked, tabloids speculated, and food blogs ran headlines like "End of Flavortown." The Food Network quickly went into damage control mode, releasing a statement reassuring fans that both the show and Guy Fieri would be returning.
First thing we do is go to this appliance store, and they have an oven that talks to your phone through Bluetooth. That's cool. I talk about how that would work. You're like, oh, the turkey's ready, babe.
But even as production resumed, industry insiders knew that diners, drive-ins, and dives would never be the same again. The original creative team was imploding, the lawsuits were flying, and Guy Fieri's once cozy image as a road-tripping foodie was now sitting in the middle of a very messy corporate war. And as the drama escalated, one question lingered over it all. Was the Food Network saving Triple D or stealing it? By the summer of 2011, the chaos surrounding diners, drive-ins, and dives had reached its breaking point. For months, David Page and the Food Network had been locked in a legal tug-of-war that turned one of cable TV's most beloved food shows into a behind-the-scenes battlefield. Both sides accused the other of sabotage, greed, and creative control gone wrong. Court filings painted a messy picture of egos, contracts, and money. The kind of drama viewers never imagined was bubbling under the surface of their favorite comfort food series. But then, just as the dispute seemed ready to explode, everything went quiet.
They said, well, okay, it's not that. This was the key word. You go around to mom and pop joints and you just eat the food and talk to the people. I said, I could do that. I said, what's it called? Diners, drivers, dive-ins, and dines.
In August of that year, both sides reached a confidential settlement. No cameras, no press releases, no dramatic statements, just silence. It was the kind of hush that usually means something big has changed, and indeed something had. Practically overnight, Page Productions, the company that had created diners, drive-ins, and dives from scratch, vanished from the show's credits. In its place appeared a new name, Citizen Pictures, a Denver-based production company with a reputation for glossy lifestyle programming. For casual viewers, nothing seemed different. The Camaro still roared down open highways, Guy Fieri still shouted, "Welcome to Flavortown," and the diners still looked as greasy and glorious as ever. But insiders knew the shift wasn't cosmetic. The entire backbone of the show had been swapped out, and many of the people who had built Triple D from the ground up were suddenly gone.
Santa Rosa, Sonoma County. This to me is the epicenter of great food and great wine. And I said, if I'm going to make a career in food, this is good soil.
To understand how seismic that change was, you have to remember what diners, drive-ins, and dives was in its early years. Under David Page's leadership, the show had a rough and ready spirit. It wasn't polished, it was pure. Crews would roll into small towns with handheld cameras, chasing real stories about mom-and-pop diners and blue-collar cooks. There was no corporate script, no marketing machine, just grease, grit, and authenticity. When Citizen Pictures took over, that indie documentary energy started to fade. The editing got slicker. The sound bites got shorter. The chaos that gave the show its charm was suddenly under control. It looked the same, but it felt different, one former crew member said years later. Like watching your favorite dive bar turn into a chain restaurant. The terms of the settlement were never disclosed, but sources close to the production have long whispered that Page Productions didn't just lose a contract, it lost ownership. Allegedly, part of the deal required Page to hand over creative rights, footage, and all intellectual property tied to the show, effectively giving the Food Network full control of its crown jewel. In industry speak, that meant the network had won. Page's vision was gone, replaced by a version of Triple D designed to be safer, cleaner, and easier to market. For many, it felt less like a legal compromise and more like a corporate takeover.
I have been to diners all over the country. I know a great cup of joe in a diner, and that's what you're going to get here.
And through it all, Guy Fieri stayed quiet. Publicly, he didn't pick sides. He continued filming, smiling, and staying on brand, a move some viewed as professionalism, others as strategic silence. Off camera, however, rumors swirled that Fieri had quietly supported the shift. Some insiders claimed he had grown tired of Page's demanding nature and wanted a production company that would give him more say in shaping the show's direction, and, by extension, his personal brand. Whether or not those whispers were true, one thing was certain. When the dust settled, Guy Fieri emerged unscathed, while Page Productions disappeared into television history.
I've come to learn is to expect the unexpected, not expect to find great food.
In the aftermath, dozens of crew members who had been with the show since day one were quietly let go. Editors, camera operators, even segment producers who had helped define the show's quirky personality were replaced by new hires under Citizen Pictures. What used to feel like a ragtag road trip suddenly resembled a well-oiled media operation. The diners were still real, but the spontaneity was gone. Every angle, every reaction, every greasy close-up was planned, framed, and branded to perfection. Diners, drive-ins, and dives had evolved from a passion project into a product, and that evolution came with a price. In production circles, the fallout became something of a cautionary tale. Triple D's transformation was studied in boardrooms and film schools as a textbook example of what happens when a small creator loses control to a big network. The Food Network had proven that it could absorb a hit show, strip away its originator, and keep it running profitably for years without missing a beat. As one former executive bluntly put it, once the network smells a hit, the creator becomes expendable.
Can someone please explain to me what the hell Guy Fieri ever did to anyone?
When the first post-settlement episodes aired, the average viewer didn't notice the change. The show still looked like the same greasy love letter to America's comfort food. But to those who knew what had happened behind the scenes, something intangible was missing. The soul of Triple D, that scrappy, genuine energy that came from being made by people who truly lived on the road, had been replaced by a brand. A billion-dollar, camera-ready, flavor-packed brand. And though the show rolled on stronger than ever, the people who had built it from the ground up were left wondering if the heart of Flavortown had been traded for control.
It wasn't a truckload of screwdrivers, you know, it wasn't a truckload of baskets. They were coming across the border. Someone knew what it was.
David Page, the man who created diners, drive-ins, and dives, didn't just lose a court case. He claimed he was betrayed by the very person who made his show famous, Guy Fieri. In interviews and off-the-record conversations that trickled out after the lawsuit, Page painted a picture of a slow, calculated takeover, not by lawyers, but from within. According to him, Fieri had quietly aligned himself with Food Network executives and a few key crew members, all while Page's company was still producing the show. The plan, Page alleged, was simple: edge him out, take creative control, and hand the keys to a new production company that would put Guy, not the show's creator, at the center of everything.
And that's the hardest thing, knowing how many people are counting on you. So, yeah, it hurt all the way around.
Did you think you were being targeted?
Well, there's a side of me that still says, yeah, it wasn't a truckload of screwdrivers, you know?
Now, to be clear, none of these allegations were ever proven in court. The settlement between Page Productions and the Food Network effectively sealed many of those details from public view. But the whispers never really stopped. Industry insiders who'd worked on Triple D during the transition years claimed the atmosphere had grown toxic, with quiet conversations between Fieri and the network happening behind closed doors, meetings Page wasn't invited to. One former crew member even told The Hollywood Reporter that by the time the lawsuit went public, the writing was already on the wall. David wasn't running the show anymore. Guy was Page himself didn't mince words when speaking about the fallout. He called the ordeal a backstab and said that Guy, who once came into Triple D as an enthusiastic newcomer, had transformed into the brand. What had started as a collaboration between a producer and a host, two guys chasing great food across America, had allegedly devolved into a silent war for ownership and identity. In Page's version of events, Fieri's charisma, his growing fame, and his marketability made him the network's golden ticket. And when it came time to choose between a brash, opinionated producer and a bankable star with a signature catchphrase, the network's loyalty was obvious.
So, yeah, it hurt all the way around.
Did you think you were being targeted?
Well, there's a side of me that still says yeah.
To make matters worse, rumors began swirling that Fieri's new production partners at Citizen Pictures weren't entirely new. Some had previously worked with Food Network on other shows, suggesting that this shift may have been in motion long before the lawsuit ended. To some observers, it looked less like a business transition and more like a quiet coup. Fieri, for his part, has never publicly addressed Page's allegations. No denial, no confirmation, just silence. Whether that's professionalism or self-preservation depends on who you ask.
Well, when the president of your company calls you and says, we have a problem, what's up? And he goes, you're not going to believe this, but we lost 2 truckloads of Santo tequila.
Lost.
I said, elaborate on loss.
In the years since, Page has stood by his story. He's described the experience as losing a piece of his identity, watching his creation continue on TV every week without his name attached. Meanwhile, Fieri's empire exploded. New shows, endorsements, merchandise, and even a Flavortown-branded restaurant chain followed. The same network that once fought its own producer in court now built entire programming blocks around Fieri's image. For some fans, it's proof that the Food Network chose its star over its storyteller. For others, it's just business, survival of the flashiest. But one question still lingers in the shadows of Triple D's success. Did Guy Fieri truly play a part in pushing out the man who made him a household name? Or was he simply caught in the middle of a corporate power struggle that got way out of hand? The truth, like a greasy diner burger, might be messier than anyone wants to admit.
It's not like we're sitting on huge reserves.
So you can't just say, turn it up, we're going to keep making more.
That's exactly what we couldn't do.
Despite never being listed as an official defendant, Guy Fieri's name was whispered in nearly every conversation surrounding the diners, drive-ins, and dives lawsuit. He wasn't on the paperwork, but his presence hung over the entire legal battle like smoke from a kitchen fire. Fans, journalists, and even a few former crew members began to wonder, was Guy just an innocent bystander caught between two warring sides, or did he have a secret agenda? He he play a quiet role in steering the show away from its original creators? The suspicion came down to timing. As the legal feud between Page Productions and the Food Network boiled over in 2011, Fieri's star power was skyrocketing. He had become the face of the network, a household name, a meme before memes were mainstream, and a merchandising goldmine. To the Food Network, Guy wasn't just a host anymore. He was a brand, a franchise, a walking empire in a bowling shirt and sunglasses. So when the lawsuit claimed the network had failed to make the host available for filming, many saw it as a tactical move, the network allegedly tightening its grip on Fieri's schedule to weaken Page Productions' control.
It feels like a movie plot.
You know, the celebrity chef, the rock star, the small tequila company, it all comes together.
David Page, never one to hold back, hinted that Guy knew more than he let on. He accused the Food Network and Fieri of coordinating behind his back, saying he felt sidelined from my own creation. Page believed that Guy's growing celebrity made him indispensable, and that the network used that leverage to force Page out. It wasn't personal, it was business, Page once said, but it sure felt like betrayal. Those words struck a nerve among industry insiders who knew how valuable Guy's persona had become.
I said, I'm sorry. I'm not your guy. What? This is like the second level, third level producer. I'm just not your guy.
Guy, however, has consistently denied any involvement in the legal chaos. In public interviews, he's kept his tone measured, almost diplomatic. He described the lawsuit years later as above my pay grade, insisting that his focus was on the show's mission, celebrating small-town America, not battling over contracts. I'm about food, people, and stories, he told one reporter, brushing off the speculation with that trademark grin. All that other stuff, lawyers, deals, business, I let the suits handle that. But for many fans, that explanation felt a little too neat. The sudden production switch, the quiet replacement of Page Productions with Citizen Pictures, and the way Triple D barely missed a beat afterward raised eyebrows. How could such a massive shift happen under Fieri's nose without his knowledge? And if he did know, why didn't he speak up for the team that helped launch his career? Some former insiders believe Guy made a calculated choice. Protect his image, distance himself from the conflict, and keep the cameras rolling. After all, the show's survival and his legacy depended on moving forward, not looking back. It's a stance that worked. Diners, drive-ins, and dives didn't just survive, it thrived. But the fallout left deep scars behind the scenes.
That's just not my stuff. Blah, 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 click. Hour later, someone else calls. What is this? I hear you're not going to do this. Da, 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 da. We da, 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 da. I said, I'm sorry, I'm just not your guy.
To this day, Guy's role in the behind-the-scenes battle remains one of the murkiest chapters in his career, a mix of denial, timing, and silence that fans still debate. Was he a victim of corporate politics or a willing participant in a quiet takeover? Either way, one thing's for sure. When the dust settled, Fieri walked away not just as the host of Triple D, but as its undisputed king. What often got buried beneath the headlines about lawsuits and network politics were the very people diners, drive-ins, and dives was built on. The small-town cooks and family-run diners who opened their doors to the cameras, thinking it would change their lives for the better. And in many cases, it did, but not always in the way they expected.
Just don't feel it. What? Click. Owner of the company calls me, the production company, reads me the riot act. You'll never work in this industry. Do you understand what you're throwing away? We spent so much money on you. I said, I am really sorry.
When the Triple D crew rolled into town, it was like a celebrity tornado. Restaurants had to shut down for days, sometimes even a full week, to make room for filming. Crews would rearrange kitchens, redo decor, and stage dishes multiple times for the perfect shot. For the Food Network, that was standard procedure. But for small businesses, especially those running on thin margins, losing even a few days of income could be devastating. We thought being on the show would save us, one restaurant owner told Eater years later. Instead, it almost broke us before the episode even aired. And then came the Triple D effect, a double-edged sword if there ever was one. The moment an episode aired, restaurants were flooded with customers, lines out the door, parking lots jammed, phones ringing nonstop. It was every small business owner's dream, until it wasn't. Some couldn't handle the sudden demand, struggling to maintain food quality and service with their tiny kitchens and small staffs. A few even had to shut down within months, overwhelmed by the attention. The Food Network never followed up, never offered assistance, and according to some, never even checked in once the cameras were gone. But the most controversial issue came down to contracts. Many restaurant owners later revealed that appearing on diners, drive-ins, and dives wasn't as simple as saying yes to fame. The legal agreements reportedly included strict clauses restricting how owners could use the show's name, footage, or even the words "as seen on Food Network." Some claimed they were warned not to post clips or screenshots on their social media without written permission or risk legal action. Others said they couldn't even print the Triple D logo on menus or signs without paying a licensing fee. What should have been a badge of honor became a bureaucratic nightmare. To make matters worse, when the show's production switched hands after the Page Productions fallout, the contracts allegedly got even tougher. Citizen Pictures, the new production company, was said to have tightened control over branding and footage rights. For the Food Network, it was about protecting intellectual property. But for the small restaurant owners who thought they were getting a free spotlight, it felt like being used for ratings and left with the crumbs.
And Brooke has a very commanding Brooke's still one of my dearest friends. Love Brooke to death. Gave me so many opportunities. And the last thing I want to do is disappoint this woman.
Not every story was bleak, of course. Some restaurants did become local landmarks, riding the Triple D wave to long-term success. But behind the sizzle reels and Guy's enthusiastic one-liners, there was a quiet pattern of burnout, frustration, and regret. The very diners and dives that made the show authentic often found themselves trapped in red tape and crushed under the weight of their own overnight fame. Fans see a quick 30-minute joyride. Guy walks in, cracks jokes, samples dishes, and hits the road. But insiders describe something very different. Filming an episode of diners, drive-ins, and dives can take 3 to 5 days, with crews arriving early to scout, rearrange, and stage every scene. Restaurants have to close their doors during production, staff work overtime, and sometimes recipes are tweaked or staged for camera appeal. It's a well-oiled machine now, but in those early seasons, that process was messy and expensive. Multiple insiders have claimed that the financial strain of production was one of the main reasons Page Productions and the Food Network started clashing in the first place.
And she says, "Why are you doing this? You came on the Food Network to..." I said, "I came on the Food Network because it was a challenge. I won, I got my show. I didn't really figure this was going to go much further."
Even after the Triple D dust settled, Guy Fieri's business empire wasn't immune to controversy. In recent years, one of his restaurants, downtown Flavortown in Pigeon Forge, faced accusations of violating federal labor laws. According to reports, the restaurant allegedly required tipped employees to perform large amounts of non-tipped side work, like cleaning or restocking, cutting into their earnings. While the case didn't spiral into another public showdown, it added another layer to the growing list of legal headaches tied to Fieri's brand. Through all the chaos, the lawsuits, the rumors, the corporate shakeups, Guy Fieri somehow stayed standing, spiky hair perfectly intact. To millions of viewers, he's still the same loud, lovable road warrior shouting "Flavortown" between bites of brisket. But to those who followed the story behind the show, the shine of that red Camaro looks a little different now. Over the years, diners, drive-ins, and dives has become more than just a food show. It's a symbol. To some, it represents the best of America, small-town grit, creativity, and a love of real food made by real people. But to others, it's something else entirely, a case study in how corporate media can package authenticity, mass-produce it, and sell it back to the public with a smile. Fieri's easygoing persona, once the heart of Triple D, has become a lightning rod for debate. Is he the genuine article, a champion of local restaurants who helped countless small businesses find an audience? Or is he the polished product of a billion-dollar machine that turned blue-collar into branding gold? Still, it's hard to ignore the good he's done. During the pandemic, Fieri raised tens of millions for struggling restaurant workers. He's used his platform to promote local chefs, mom-and-pop shops, and independent eateries long after the cameras stopped rolling. Those efforts earned him respect even from longtime critics, but they also reignited old questions. Was this a redemption arc or a PR move to clean up the mess left behind by years of controversy and quiet settlement? And now, as Fieri begins to open up, carefully, selectively, about the past, the public's curiosity has only deepened. Fans are revisiting old interviews, combing through production credits, and connecting dots between the legal battles and the rise of Brand Fieri. Because once you peel back the layers of diners, drive-ins, and dives, it becomes clear that the road to Flavortown wasn't just paved with greasy spoons and good intentions. It was built on contracts, courtrooms, and cutthroat decisions. That's it for today. See you in the next video. Until then, goodbye.